Welcome everyone to our master class. Kind of a special one because it kind of takes me back to, sort of how I got started in this industry in the first place. As most of you know, I was an athlete. Well, maybe you don't because you're too young to know. But I was an athlete and actually competed in bodybuilding for 18 years and was one of the better ones, by the way. And so this is all, everything. It was for bodybuilders. It was all about altering body composition. It was never about weight loss, right? In fact, it was weight gain while you lost body fat. So really, that's what gave me the impetus to start the companies, during the time I was still an athlete, still competing, and we were going around the country, opening up all the Gold's gyms in the very beginning and teaching people how to actually gain muscle while you lose body fat. And so we're talking about the early 80s, right? And so now science finally catches up with us, which is one of those kind of amazing things, when you're an athlete and you're actually applying things to yourself, you learn things a little faster than they do in a lab. Okay. So it was always entertaining for me because I would get so many bodybuilders ready for competitions. And most of you know, I got Flex Wheeler, so at the highest level, ready for all those Arnold Classics that he won, the record there, and then all the other top bodybuilders that I competed with, from Mike Christians and the Gasparis. I, of course, got them all ready for their shows as well as they went into Mr. Olympias and so forth. These are guys I competed with as well. So it was a natural thing for us to understand how you did that, and it was all, of course, it's all related to nutrition. I mean, the workouts, the easy part. It was all the nutrition pieces. So that's what we're going to get into, and this is part one of a 3-part series. And Kat's going to run this all down because she's going to do sort of the boring science that's already proved what we were doing years and years ago. And we knew this, where science goes, you can't build muscle while you lose body fat. That's impossible. Well, of course, we did it every day. And I've done it with millions of people through all the programs, from Bodybug to Apex to, all the way back to nutrition analysis. So anyway, we're going to put that all together in a 3-part series. And we want you to chime in about the second part and the third part, okay? But the first part is just going to kind of set you up for the real simple things that we already know, but, we're just going to put some color to it. So I'm going to let Kat take it from here. Kat, so you guys all know Kat. She is not just our senior dietitian, but also our EVP, or Executive Vice President of Nutritional Services for our global companies. And so she's going to put this all, and a dietitian. Okay, so she's the one that's going to be presenting this thing from her stand, and I will kind of chime in slide to slide. So Kat, take it over.
Okay, awesome. So thank Neil for that, and it's really cool because you guys are going to get some of the science as well as the practical from Neil's experience. And just to chime in a little bit, I started in this industry as a personal trainer, and my kids are both athletes. One of them's a pro, so I do have some practical experience too. So let's dive in. Just some couple quick housekeeping tips. You are in listen only mode so that we can capture recording. We get a lot of questions on this. We always post the recording on our website, and you'll be able to download the slides as well. So we have about 45, 50 minutes of content, and then we'll take questions and answers at the end. And what's pretty exciting for us is Neil's going to be doing a deep dive at the NASM Optima conference next month, mid-October, on diets, physique dieting for bodybuilders, etc., and sort of going in more of a funner, interactive presentation. I'll try to be as fun as possible today. So let's get started, and buckle your seats, please. Here we go. Okay, so fat loss versus weight loss beyond calories. So today we're going to go into essentially setting the stage. Let's talk about energy balance, and then this acronym CICO, calories in, calories out, clearing some of the myths around that. We'll talk about diet quality and whether that matters, popular diets and composition of weight loss, how much muscle versus fat is lost in these popular diets, the factors that influence how much muscle is lost or gained while dieting, and then we'll dig into some of the science, some of the particular studies about this concept of body recomposition, losing fat and gaining muscle simultaneously. And then finally, we'll give you the how-tos in terms of setting up a program to prioritize fat loss while preserving and or building muscle tissue. Okay, so some definitions of terms so that we're all on the same page. What is maintenance? Maintenance, the calories required to maintain your weight, the number of calories you need to stay the same. So what is that composed of? It's composed of your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, your TEF, exercise, and NEAT. So let's dig into what those are. BMR, basal metabolic rate. We call these just maintenance or, sustaining life calories. What does it take to keep you alive? That's composed of probably the biggest component of, the typical person's daily calorie expenditure. Then we have TEF, thermic effect of feeding. That's the calories required to digest and absorb the food that you consume and the beverages. The average is around 10%, but there's a range, and we'll talk a little bit about that range. And then there's NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. What is that? Well, that's all your movement, all the calories you expend besides your planned workouts. And then that's probably about 15 to 50%, but that totally varies depending on what you do for a living as well as your lifestyle. It's really the most flexible aspect of your daily burn. You can't really change your BMR to a significant extent. Neither can you on your TEF. Exercise, depending on how much time you have in your life. But NEAT, you can really do a lot of tweaking on. Okay, a little bit more in terms of terms. Calorie restriction. This term calorie restriction, what does that mean? It's reducing calories below your maintenance to create what we call a calorie deficit. You've probably heard it because it's a prominent term to when we talk about weight loss. So your output in terms of calories is going to be greater than your input, thereby forcing your body to use your stored calories to run your metabolism. Then we have this concept of, dieting versus a diet, right? So what does dieting mean? Diet means you're restricting your calories for weight loss. What does a diet mean? A diet simply refers to how you eat. It could be keto, it could be paleo, it could be balanced, it could be Mediterranean. It doesn't necessarily mean you are restricting calories for weight loss. Okay, so you'll hear those terms throughout, and I want to make sure you know that sometimes we refer to a diet. It doesn't mean you're on a diet, it's just the way you eat. Then we have LBM, lean body mass. So that is synonymous with fat-free mass. You'll see both, especially if you read scientific research, and that is all fat-free tissue, including your muscle, right? Your bone, your fluid, your connective tissue. So lean body mass, we'll talk about that a lot because that's typically what gets measured in the science. And then of course, bodybuilders like Neil and people who work with physique athletes, a lot of times they use their eyes to determine whether or not someone's getting leaner or losing fat mass as opposed to just lean body mass. Okay, so let's clear up some concepts, set the stage for energy balance and calories. So what does it actually mean? What does energy balance mean? It's also called calories in, calories at, CICO. So this simply refers to the physiological state the body is in. Okay, physiologically, you're either in one of these three states. You can't be in any other state. You're either in balance, right, which means you're maintaining your weight, you're eating the same as you're burning, which is this middle scenario here, or you're in a deficit, meaning you're losing weight, or you're in a surplus, which means you're gaining weight, right? So you're always, sometimes we fluctuate in between the two, and very rarely do people eat the exact same from day-to-day basis. But let's say you're gaining weight over time. The average weight gain, if I'm correct, in America for adults is 1 to 3 pounds a year. So if you're gaining 1 to 3 pounds a year like the typical American, you're in a calorie surplus over time. But day to day, you might be under some days or over some days. Do you want to add anything to that, Neil?
So a comment on this slide here for sure. Okay, so when you look at deficit, I don't know anybody that wants to lose muscle or bone or organ tissue. I don't know anybody that wants to do that. So what our job is where we want to extract, when you are in a deficit, we want to draw those calories. Because remember, energy is neither created nor destroyed. This isn't something I made up. Okay, this is what the world knows, right? Okay, so it means that if you don't have enough energy to run your body, it's got to go find it somewhere inside the body, right? And it pulls it apart and it shrinks it. We want it to shrink a target area, and that would be body fat. We don't want it to shrink our bones. We don't want it to shrink our muscle, and we don't want it to shrink our organs, all right, other organs, vital organs, which is exactly what it does. And it does that because evolution, from an evolutionary standpoint, it had to burn less calories when you were starving. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So we can direct it. The goal is, and when I came up with the 5 components back in the 80s, it's all documented, by the way, in Muscle and Fitness back in the, or there's not, my original article is still on the wall here, you know, back in the 80s about, you know, feeding muscle and starving fat. That's what you, and directing the body where to take the energy from. We don't want to take it from muscle. We want to take it from fat. So keep that in mind. Those are the things we're going to be showing you is going there in a surplus. And if you're in a surplus, we want it to go to muscle. So you got to give it a reason to go to muscle. So we'll get into all that.
Okay, good. Good context. Forcing the body to utilize the calories stored, right, to keep you alive. All right, so next slide, let's go. If I can get it to move. All right, so what does energy balance in calories out not mean? Well, it's not the same thing as saying that all calories are equal, because you just intuitively know that all calories are not equal, right? In terms of things like muscle loss or muscle gain, daily energy expenditure, the output, right? Certain things like protein burns more calories as digested than the other macronutrients. How much you eat is impacted by your diet quality. How many nutrients, vitamins and minerals and antioxidants you get. The risk of health issues is impacted by your diet quality. Your immune function, which we covered in the last 2 master classes, how hungry you are, how satisfied you are, your energy levels, how well you recover, and the quality of your workout sessions. A lot of you that are, you know, gym heads, you know, if you don't eat well, your energy levels and you know, it often suffers, and so your workouts suffer as well. So we're not saying that all calories or that diet quality doesn't matter. Okay, so I want to make that point. But what we are saying is that regardless of how you eat, you know, to lose weight, there must be a calorie deficit. So regardless of where the calories come from, there has to be a calorie deficit. And then the opposite is true as well. So weight gain only occurs when there's a calorie surplus, even if you're eating really healthy, right? We have a very good friend, Ode Hogan, you know, one of the world's strongest men. How much does he weigh, Neil?
Well, he's down now. He's old. He's retired and old, but he runs this, all the world's strongest men. He trains them. He was 310 pounds or 320 pounds.
Yeah, and he eats really healthy, but, you know, when he wants to put on mass, he just eats more, you know, more healthy foods. So you can gain weight with a high quality diet. Did you want to add into that, Neil?
No, I think, again, the thing about calories being equal, obviously 2,000 calories of French fries isn't as good as 2,000 calories of a balanced diet. So the point is that if you're still eating less than you burn, even the French fries you would lose weight on, but you're going to stop losing weight because you can't move anymore. You know, the whole point is what a good balanced diet does, it makes you want to move more and you don't have to lower your calories. Isn't that beautiful? That's what's great about it.
Very beautiful. Now, good segue, because the next slide we're going to talk about a study. This is a pretty recent study by Kevin Hall. He's an obesity researcher. And so what he did is he basically randomized 20 inpatient in the hospital, right there in a ward, to following 2 different diets, 2 weeks at a time, ad libitum. And ad libitum means you can eat however much you wanted, however much you want. You just can eat whatever. They just presented the food to them. It was either an ultra processed diet, so we're talking about like fast food, heavily processed foods, versus more of a whole food type of diet. And so when they did this, what they found was that people who ate the ultra processed foods, what do they do? Well, they consume 500 more calories a day, and they gained 2 pounds of weight over that 2-week period. Whereas it's not really unprocessed, it's like minimally processed foods, right? That resulted in a 2-pound weight loss. And so the takeaway here is that ultra processed foods, ultra processed diet, it makes it easier to overeat, which makes it easier to gain weight. And to Neil's point, you're not going to feel good or you're not going to want to move around, right? And the opposite is true for your unprocessed diet.
Yeah. So so everybody's clear on this, because what happens is you get some zealots out there where they think, oh, processed food. Well, I got news for you. Everything's processed. The second I pull an orange off my tree in my ranch, I pull it off the tree and I peel the peel. I actually take the peel and peel it off, right? It's processed. All right, that's the first step of a process. And it's as natural as can be. I mean, trust me, my soil is as clean, organic as it can possibly get on the ranch. It has come all the way there. No pesticides, nothing. But as second I take the peel off that orange, it is processed. So that's one step. And that's why I like what Kat did here. It is just, the less processed, right? Everything is, or you can't eat it. Unless you're going to go eat the cow before you take the meat out of it. You're going to go chew on its fur. Okay, so I mean, all these things, you got to understand that. Just don't get carried away with, process. It's ultra process. It means if it's gone through a bunch, like some kind of, like a hot dog, generally that is, but you can get less processed. So understand that. But what I love about this slide and what this study did, because this was something I was very in tune with, this study here, is that all it does, the ultra processed food is laden with all kinds of things that want you to eat more. Sugar, fats, and salts. It is spiked with that because they know humans are addicted to that. And that's why you gain weight. It's not because of the calories in it. It's because you eat more. And you'll probably end up moving less because you're gaining weight. So you have a combination.
Yep.
So it's a bad combo. So just eat as clean as you can. You're not going to eat completely unprocessed food. There's no such thing.
Exactly. Okay, so the next thing is with energy balance, calories in, calories out, is it's not synonymous with counting calories. We get people that, I hear this a lot from trainers, oh, does that mean you have to count calories? No, it doesn't mean that. It's not required for weight loss, but we know through experience, and there's a ton of science that backs this up, that counting calories or macros or tracking food, keeping a food diary, it's a very useful tool, especially initially, right? Because people tend to think that they eat less than they actually do. That's called underreporting, that you can read about in the research as well. So it is a useful tool, but no, you don't have to. And the reason why it's so important and so helpful is because it increases awareness. I didn't know this food has so many calories. I didn't know I was eating these portion sizes. So it builds your food knowledge, and it adds this layer of accountability that we all need. And it makes you double think, right? Like, whoa, if I have to, I'm not going to eat this if I have to write it down. So it is very useful. Now, for some, it's not, because it makes them obsessive. It can lead to disordered eating for some people. So if this causes you stress, then it's likely not for you. So I just wanted to clarify that it's not synonymous with counting calories, right?
But
it is a helpful tool.
But something is going to count your calories, right? And for lack of without having to tell you the whole story about body composition, the number on the scale is going to count your calories, or your mirror is going to count your calories. You're going to see a little extra stuff hanging off here, okay? You're going to see a number coming up in the scale when it shouldn't be coming up on the scale. I like body fat. I measure body fat. Always use skin calipers, nothing else, because that tells me the entire story. I know if it's going down or up. I don't care if it's off by 1% or 2%. It's telling me if you're going down or up. The number on the scale means nothing to me. But I'm telling you, that's how you count calories, because people lie, numbers don't. So we can, just letting you know, to Kat's point, counting calories in the beginning is almost super important, so you understand what's actually in foods and how much. If you don't know how many calories you burn, you don't know how many calories you eat. I mean, how are you going to start? You got to start somewhere. So it's at least to start. Yeah. From there on out, you can use your eyeballs. As long as you're not, as long as you don't have what we used to call in bodybuilding DMS, distorted mirror syndrome. You're seeing something nobody else is. Okay, go ahead, Kat.
Okay, so key points. Yes, diet quality matters, but the energy balance or law of thermodynamics still applies. And no, you don't have to count calories, but to Neil's point, all calories count. Okay, so what diet is best for weight loss? Because there's a lot of debate out there in terms of, which one should I follow? Well, we already covered this, but just to recap, among popular diets, there is no single superior diet for weight loss among popular diets. So if you look at the ones I have here, this is a colleague, dietitian, fellow dietitian. She basically breaks down all the different types of diets, and they all do the same thing using different strategies. They cut calories either by restricting food choices, with portion control, restricting the time that you eat, or the types of foods you eat. So they all tend to cut calories by around 20-25% in general, but there is no superior single diet for weight loss. You got to be able to stick to it. That's the biggest determinant. Like, pick the one that you feel the best that you can stick to, because that's the biggest determinant of it. And you have to be able to sustain that calorie deficit to continuously lose that fat, or you're going to hit a plateau like most people do. So referring you guys back to the masterclass on popular diets, it's a link we'll include in the slides when you're able to download them. If you're familiar with your .fit account, the trainer's on here. It's under .fit tools in your trainer account. Okay, now the trade-off is you cut calories, right? Well, you're also going to cut out your vitamins and minerals, your micronutrients. And so this is a big time study that identified for popular diets. I'm sure all of you know someone or have or done it yourself that has followed the low carb diet. Some of you follow Mediterranean. Some of you follow the low fat, high carb diets. And then maybe some of you follow the DASH diet. So these diets were analyzed for 27 vitamins and minerals. Each one of them failed to provide 12 to 21 essential micronutrients. And so they extrapolated the data and found that almost 28,000 calories were needed to get all 27 micronutrients. There's a little bit more micronutrients than 27, but those are the ones that tend to be missing. And so why do you care about that? Well, if you watch the other master classes on micronutrients, your micronutrient intake impacts everything about your body, especially your long-term health. And Neil has done a bunch of stuff in this area and is publishing a paper right now on micronutrient intakes and lifespan and play span. So this right here is a breakdown of, okay, if you're following a diet, paleo, keto, vegan, gluten-free, intermittent fasting, this is basically a summary of how it works, what you can, what you can't eat. These are the nutrients that are going to tend to be missing. And so what we've done is we've said, hey, you don't want to miss micronutrients. We know it, messes with your metabolism. We know it can put you at risk for long-term health issues. So here are the supplements that we recommend. Let's say you're a vegan. Well, you're going to tend to be low and the nutrients are only found in animal foods. So we recommend check your vitamin D, get more if needed. You can get that from plant sources. Get your omega-3 fats, get your B12 and zinc. So all these things you should be filling in the gaps if you are following one of these diet patterns that eliminates something in terms of micronutrients. Comment, Neil?
Well, just, again, I gave up a long time ago, as you know, Kat, when I first, when I first created the Body Bug. I gave up a long time ago telling people how to eat, right? There's a real simple way to eat, and it is almost the Mediterranean style, if you will. There's a real that captures pretty much as much nutrition as you can get out of food at the calories that allow you to stay lean, which is why everybody on the planet, no matter how well you eat, needs a multivitamin mineral. That is not negotiable. That is automatic, right? It just gets worse with these diets. So these diets have only helped our business because everybody needs 10 times more supplements. But yeah, our goal is to get everybody to eat as clean as possible, obviously, when it gets to, or the best you can anyway, with a variety of foods. The human body is an omnivore. It was born to be an omnivore. It's evolved as an omnivore. It eats what it can and it figures out how to put it together, not just eliminating food groups. So I just want to keep that in mind for everybody.
Okay, great. So this is, again, a continuation of popular diets. When you look at, this is actually a really cool study, a paper. If you read this paper, you'll be able to dig into the details, but it's basically a comparison of changes in fat mass and lean mass on these different diet types, if you will. And so you can see, and Neil's taught this for many, many years now, in general, when you're on a weight loss diet, for every pound, a quarter of it's going to be lean mass, and the rest, 3/4 is going to come from fat. But notice the outlier on this chart, right? So you can see that the high protein diet is going to save you much more, right? Over half amount as lean mass and significantly more body fat. So, again, bodybuilders knew this for a long, long time, and the research is a little bit slow in catching up. But now it's nice to see, it is getting tested out, and it is, we can actually show the proof that not only is a high protein diet going to be better for you body composition wise, but even high protein intakes, triple this amount, triple the RDA, quadruple the RDA has been shown to be safe when it's tested for over a year. So it doesn't harm your kidneys in healthy individuals. Now, if you do have problems with kidneys, then that's a different story. Okay, so let's talk about some of the consequences, negative consequences of calorie restriction. Because remember, the human body, we're hardwired, we're programmed to survive. We want to survive and propagate the species, right? That's what we're hardwired to do. So your body's going to get rid of the fat and some muscle tissue to fuel your metabolism, to prolong survival and keep you alive, right? Survival's the name of the game. Now, what happens on a cellular level is your muscle protein synthesis, or your building, decreases, making it harder to build. So you're now in a catabolic state to keep you alive. And then your muscle protein breakdown increases, right? Leading to the loss of muscle as well as fat. Well, your body's going to go, hey, I don't like this. You need to survive. So it's going to increase hunger hormones like ghrelin. It's going to help you preserve energy like NEAT, decrease your NEAT, decrease your spontaneous movement throughout the day. And it does that through thyroid hormones and some other hormones. It also will slow your BMR down a little bit to close that calorie deficit. So that you'll read about is also referred to as metabolic adaptation or adaptive thermogenesis. And then if you're in prolonged starvation, we talked about the Minnesota starvation study in a different master class, right? It makes it easier for you to gain weight, and that's referred to as fat overshooting. You'll see this in the Biggest Loser studies too, if you keep up with the science, is it makes it easier to put on fat mass later on if you're dieting too severely or too long. Okay, so let's compare weight loss versus fat loss. What are the comparisons? So this is a woman who's lost some weight. Her focus was on the scale and getting as many pounds down as possible, right? So I'm going to differentiate between weight loss and fat loss. So the focus is on the scale. We don't care where it comes from. We just want to get it to change. And it can lead to being obsessive. I don't know if you guys experience that, but being obsessed by the number on the scale is quite common in our industry. It often occurs rapidly. So you're going to tend to see more of a loss in lean mass. Sorry, guys. My slide was hiding. There we go. Okay, so you're going to see a rapid loss of lean body mass. You're going to get the consequences of dieting are going to be more severe, right? Your metabolic adaptation. But, to sort of defend, practitioners and medical professionals, it can sometimes be the necessary case if you're obese or severely obese, because you have a lot more issues that need to be addressed, and you got to get the weight off quickly. So that's just a small caveat. It'll exacerbate your micronutrient shortages. It often leads to weight rebound and may or may not include exercise. And we would all agree on this call that exercise is beneficial regardless of weight, right? Some argue it's the fountain of youth. So what's the difference between weight loss and fat loss? So you can see the difference in the pictures of the two different women that we've depicted here, right? So this woman, in the industry, sometimes we call this, soft skinny or skinny fat, as opposed to someone who looks like this, right? Who looks more fit. So fat loss, what's the difference? The focus is on, again, starving your fat while you're building your muscle. Your diet quality is prioritized. Slower changes on the scale. So a lot of people may find it more frustrating, less motivating, because the scale does move slower, but it tends to be more sustainable. The consequences of dying are less severe. You can really preserve your metabolism better. The appearance, that's no doubt. It includes resistance training, and it supports functional independence with age, right? In other words, you get a higher quality of life among older people who resistance train and exercise on a consistent basis. So you can clearly see the difference, right? So what are the factors that influence whether or not I lose lean mass versus fat? So let's just list those really quick. How fast do you lose? So the rate, right? That equates to the size of your daily calorie deficit. That's going to influence how much muscle is lost, whether or not you resistance train, how much protein you eat, are you getting the right micronutrients, how often you're eating, as well as your age. We know that with age, it's like the universe goes, we don't really need you past reproduction, so you can start to lose muscle. And that's really what happens. You start to lose muscle as you age. And then your training status, whether or not you're new to exercise and resistance training or not, we know it's tougher for trained individuals to put on mass as they, reach their sort of genetic ceiling, if you will. Okay, let's get into strategies. We've got 3 for you today. 3 evidence-based strategies to optimize body composition. And we really wanted to give a definition to this to be crystal clear, right? It's about maximizing fat loss, preserving or building, in some cases, muscle tissue, which we'll go over, and then supporting health, not compromising your health and longevity by making sure you're getting the right micronutrients while you are restricting calories. So the first one is you want to choose the appropriate rate of weight loss. Well, what does that mean? That means you're trying to mitigate, you're trying to lessen the loss of muscle mass by telling your body to hang on to its muscle. So you're going to get, your BMR is not going to slow as quickly as if you're going super fast, and your hunger and cravings are also going to be, better. It allows time for you to develop healthy habits, and it's a lower likelihood of weight regain. So the action item here is you want to aim for about 0.5% to 1% per week of your body weight. And Neil, you talk about a number all the time. What's that number that you talk about?
I mean, the easiest number to remember with anybody is about 1 pound a week. Now again, that's there's just a lot of people that will not be motivated by that. And the heavier they are, the more you can lose and still be safe. And I don't have any problem with anybody losing a little bit of muscle in the beginning, but I'll bring that all back towards the end, because the leaner you get, the slower you need to go if you're going to maintain it. And the other part of that whole thing, so the deficit, the maximum deficit that we see that preserves the most amount of muscle is about 750 calories a week, which would be 1.5 pounds for anybody. That's the maximum when you got a safe weight loss, right? When I say safe, I mean as far as preserving lean body mass. But you're still losing some, as you saw in those slides. We can cheat that as well, not just from adding exercise, but with more aggressive supplementation, which is what we do later on. But this is a good number here. So that means you can lose, if you're 200 pounds, you can lose 2 pounds a week. That's not a problem. So it's a good number, and it's a kind of a safe number to go. And not only that, it's much easier to maintain. The hard thing is, though, some people you might want to go fast in the beginning, or you've got a time constraint, then you got to go fast. And our program's set up to do that. That's a great thing about the .fit program. It'll take you can go as fast as you want safely, because we have a cellar on it where you can't go any lower than that or faster than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's do a quick comparison, right? Let's take a 155-pound female, 34 years old. She has a sedentary job. We're all sedentary nowadays, right? Exercises 2 to 3 times a week, wants to lose about 15 pounds. So the first scenario is you set her up to lose 0.5% per week, and that equates to about 0.7 pounds per week. I ran her numbers through our .fit program. Her burn is about 1983, and her daily calorie budget would be 1633, giving you a deficit of 350 calories. That's about 18% calorie deficit. Cool. Okay, so let's take the second scenario. Now we're going to push it to 1%. We're going to double the rate of weight loss. We're going to go faster, like most people want to do. And that means 1.4 pounds per week for her. Same calorie burn, but now the deficit is 1283. So compare the numbers, 1633 versus 1283. Now the deficit is 700 calories. It's pushing that number that Neil was talking about. It's still okay, but for her, how is she going to feel? Is it sustainable for her? Right. So those are the two different scenarios, still within that range. And it's really, we can give you the evidence, but until you work with her and see how she feels and she gives you feedback, then you're going to always adjust the plan accordingly based on, how she feels and based on whether or not her body is changing. So again, the .fit program allows you to set your weekly weight loss rate. And then you always want to judge based on results, right? You input your weight or body fat into our program. A lot of people don't know this, but you input it into our program and it will adjust your calories to keep you on track, or you can extend that target out. You can extend the weeks out if you want to still need some time for adjustment. And then it'll also recalculate your menu. So if you're using our 8 different menus in the program, it'll recalculate and redo those menus for you. And I've had the pleasure of working with some, bikini athletes, getting them ready for a show. I think Bernice, she's on here. She's competed. And, she'd plot every week, and her graph in the .fit program is so cool to look at, because nobody loses weight linearly like this. It's always lose, plateau, or go up one, and then you make more progress as you go. Okay, so in general, your slower rates of weight loss are more effective at preserving muscle mass and metabolism. And again, use our program to sort of keep you within that range. Before I move on to the next one, Neil, you got any comments? Want to add
No,
anything to
we're
that?
good. We're good with that. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It is really all about, so many people are motivated by the time frame, and how fast they can lose. You just got to kind of balance that whole thing out as a fitness professional. The good news, when I first started doing this for people, I didn't work with overweight people. I work with people that were maybe a little overweight, but mostly bodybuilders getting ready for a show. So you had a time limit. You don't have a choice.
Yeah.
There's a date, and you got to be there or you don't get on stage. And that's what taught me everything. Was able to even write a program like this that will work 100 times better for a non-bodybuilder even, That's the good
Yes, exactly. Okay, so key strategy 2 is you've got to resistance train. You've got to work with resistance, right? Because if you look at the graphic here, this is the only way that our body knows to hold on to muscle tissue or to grow it, is by giving it a stimulus, give it a reason to hang on to the muscle tissue. And it's got to be progressive resistance training. In other words, it's got to challenge you and keep challenging you over time. You can't just lift and not feel challenged, right? Because you got to give your body, the damage. Of course, you got to damage it, and then you got to force it to repair. And we know that a deficit blunts your muscle protein synthesis. When you train and it's challenging, it sensitizes your muscle to nutrient intake. So think of it as a sponge, right? Your muscles, when you train, you open up the pores and it's able to soak in more of those nutrients. Now, it also can help with metabolic adaptations and weight regain because you're preserving muscle tissue. We know that active muscle tissue, it burns way more, especially with the movement, than adipose tissue fat, which is also active, but far less. So the strategy here, the take home here, you want to aim for a minimum of 3 sessions per week, full body, or you can split it up like in a bodybuilding, traditional bodybuilding split routine, upper body, lower body. But you're going to want to give your muscles a good stimulus every couple days, right? So you've got to train with weights to keep that muscle tissue on. And I'm a big fan of experts. I like to work with people who specialize in an area. And so work with a fit pro to get some tailored recommendations. Everybody's doing things online nowadays. For those of you who are in areas where your gyms are closed, and we're working on a special project to get you connected with a trainer as well online. Okay, so key strategy number 3, you got to prioritize protein. So if you're going to cut calories, don't cut them from protein. Don't cut them from protein, right? Now, the RDA, which stands for the recommended dietary allowance, the daily amount, is based on sedentary individuals just to preserve muscle tissues. Again, sedentary meaning they're not exercising, they're not trying to lose weight or gain. So does this apply to your people? Probably not, because they exercise, right? And they're going to want to lose weight. So we know that it's not enough. And what does protein do? What makes it special as compared to carbs and fats? Well, it's got the building blocks of muscle tissue. It's the actual stuff. Picture a bunch of Legos, little pieces of all different colors that are required to build muscle tissue. And we know that one of those building blocks is leucine. It's the one that's needed to start the muscle building process. They call it the trigger to muscle protein synthesis. And you need at least 2 to 3 grams, more for older individuals, more for bigger individuals. If you got more muscle mass, you need more. And then the other essential aminos are needed to keep the muscle protein synthesis turned on, which is why we formulate some of the products the way we do, so that it has sufficient leucine, whether you're taking the whey, the best plant, the lean MR, or the essential amino acids and the amino boost, so that you can keep the muscle protein synthesis turned on. Now, protein also has the highest thermic effect of food. Remember what that was back in the definition of terms that we covered? It's the number of calories your body uses to break down food. So for protein, it's around 30%. You're going to use about 30% of the calories from protein to digest it, to break it down, to metabolize it. Whereas carbohydrates, you only use around 8 to 10% of those calories. For fat, it's maybe 1 to 2% of those calories. So you can see that if you cut back carbs or fat and you increase protein in your diet, you're going to have a higher thermic effect of feeding. Now, the really cool thing about protein is it's got the satiating effect, right? What do people hate when they're going on a diet? They hate feeling hungry. It's one of the worst feelings. So protein blunts hunger. very effectively, right, in the form of free-form amino acids, like amino boost or a whey protein or food. The rise in essential amino acids blunts hunger. So it's got this satiating effect, which means you can be more consistent with staying in a deficit. So the target here is to aim for, I'm going to give it to you in pounds per body weight for those of you who can't get your body composition done. It's 0.7 to 1 gram per pound of your body weight. So take your body weight, multiply it by 0.7, and that's your low end. And then just take your body weight, right? Like, so let's say you weigh 150, then your upper range would be 150 grams per day. Or you can go by a gram per pound of lean body mass, if those of you who can take your body composition done, and you want to spread it across approximately 4 meals a day to keep the muscle protein synthesis going. And Neil's going to talk about this next.
Yeah. So whether you work out or not, that graph on the right tells you what's happening in your body right now. As you're sitting, who's ever sitting down or standing up, whatever, that's what's happening. Every 4 hours, your body is, somewhere in your body is building muscle, tearing it down 4 hours up. So in other words, if you stopped eating right now, you will end up on the downside, right there on the downside, as you can see where it says that. And if protein doesn't come in, all you do is shrink and eventually die. It's that simple. So the goal is every 4 hours, if you want to maximize synthesis, I'm not talking about your average person, but if you want to maximize synthesis, that's how the old 4-hour rule came into play. We know this is how the body works. So every 4 hours, you make sure protein's available. And that's the whole idea. Now, however, the average person, if they don't eat every 4 hours, they're fine as long as they're getting the 1 gram per pound of lean body mass at least a couple times, 3 times a day. It's good enough. But if you're trying to maximize protein synthesis, then every 4 hours what you want. That's maximizing. And that's like athletes and, of course, recovery from intense exercise. But most of your clients will be just fine getting a gram per pound. But a real important note, which we'll talk about as we get into the part 2s and part 3s, is the protein before and after a workout. Because that window, that right after a workout, no matter where you are in protein synthesis or tear down, obviously you've just torn it down, right? If you don't eat, eventually you can't build any protein if you don't eat right after. And if you never eat again, you're dead, right? You just shrink and die. But I have to paint that picture for everybody so they really get it. But what happens is when amino acids and protein degradation, when you wiped it out during a workout, when they meet, like right at the same point, right after a workout, that's when, like Kat was telling you, the nutrient sensitivity is so high, the sponge is empty. It's going, please help me. So it stays there, it soaks it up, and that window closes after about 60, 90 minutes. You don't get that same activity. So you really want to make sure before and after a workout, and that'll prolong the ability for you to work out the rest of your life by getting that extra recovery every single workout.
Yep. Yes. So good. We're going to cover nutrient timing a little bit because I know there's been a lot of studies out there that talks about the anabolic window and how it's not necessary. Well, there's no downside, let me tell you that. And there could potentially be a lot of upside, like Neil said, chronic adaptation. So we're definitely going to go into that next. Okay, so you got your 3 strategies. So I want you guys to stop multitasking if you are. And in the chat, in the questions area, type in, Neil, you feel like giving something away? You're feeling generous today? You're always generous. But type in the 3 strategies we just gave you for maximizing fat loss and preserving muscle tissue. And I bet you Neil will, award a prize to somebody who gets it first. Am I wrong, Neil? Don't make me a liar, Neil.
Just tell us what you want for your subs, and I'll send it to you. Send me a list of what you have to have for yourself.
Okay, so make sure you type it in. Hurry, hurry, hurry. And the next thing we're going to cover is this fairly new to the research, not new to the bodybuilders, body recomposition effect, losing fat and gaining lean body mass at the same time. Okay, so and we got maybe 2 or 3 more slides, and then we'll wrap up and take your guys' questions at the end. So I see everybody furiously typing away. So thank you for that. Someone's going to get stuff for free. We love free stuff. Okay, so let's dig in. I know this graph may look crazy. So let me just break it down to you, right? This is a study that was performed by and in 40 overweight young active men, right? So basically in the, gym population, if you will, they were put in a severe calorie deficit, a 40% calorie deficit. That means eating 40% fewer calories than needed to maintain their weight, right? They worked out hard. They did full body circuit training, which included plyometrics. So basically HIIT training 6 days a week for 4 weeks. They were randomized to one of two groups. The first group consumed what's called the protein group, 1.1 grams per pound of their body weight, right? Or 35% of their calories. And the other group was a control group. So they consumed 0.54 grams per pound of body weight, only 15% of the calories. And just for you guys that are like really, geeks like me, that 15 to 35% is within that acceptable macronutrient range that you'll read about or that you'll learn in school. And so both groups, right, ate carbohydrates. They had 50% of their calories from carbs. When I read that, I was like, thank goodness, because they were doing HIIT 6 times a week, right? They were doing high intensity workouts. Now the protein group, in order for them to reach that target, they used whey protein. They actually added it to milk to reach their daily target within their total calories. And then both groups ate more than the RDA, the minimum amount needed, 0.36 required to just prevent muscle loss. Here's the key. They both lost the same amount of weight, which is our topic for today, right? But completely different compositions of weight. So the first data point, look at the graph, right? Look at the chart here I'm showing. So what you're looking at on the y-axis is change in kilograms. In the research, it's always expressed in kilograms. So change in kilograms, right? You can see protein group is black, control group, and that's the high protein, control group is white. And so the first data point you want to look at is this one, body mass, same weight change. So could you see they have both dropped weight, right? Right around 3.5 kilos. They both dropped weight. So maybe that's about 8 pounds or so. And then the high protein group in black, they gained lean mass. About 2 pounds of lean mass was gained during this 4-work period of including resistance training and high protein. Look at the control group. They actually maintain their muscle, right? They maintain their muscle tissue. And then the final data point you want to look at is the high protein group lost significantly more. That's what that asterisk means. That star means it was a significant difference. Now, of course, the control group still lost fat. They were in a deficit, but the one eating the high protein, they lost more body fat. So yes, we've observed that people can lose fat and gain muscle at the same time. And again, this is in young, active, overweight men. So you may be wondering, well, what about females? What about active females like me, right? So active females were also studied. This has been from Bill Campbell's lab down at the University of South Florida. And he studied 17 young female novice. So they're getting ready to step on stage. People like Bernice or people who have competed maybe once or twice or they're getting ready to. And they did an 8-week supervised resistance training program, 4 days a week, right? Bodybuilder split, if you will, randomly assigned to high protein, high being 1 gram per pound of body weight per day, low being half of that amount, 0.4. Everything was tracked. And guess what happened? The high protein group, they recompositioned their body. In other words, they gained some lean mass. The high protein group gained more. The low protein group gained less. But check this out. This is a little nuance. 3 of the 9 of the people that were in this group actually lost lean mass, right? Because the studies always give you means or averages. But only the high protein group lost a significant amount of fat, 2.4 pounds. Okay, so they did experience it as well. But the high protein group, interestingly, right, they consume more total calories. And they didn't explain why, but we've alluded to this. Neil alluded to it. You know, you higher thermic effective food, you feel better, you're more motivated when you see your body changes, you're moving around more, etc. And then the final one on recomposition is from Jose Antonio's lab, and they gave really high protein. Okay, so this was in 48 males and females that had already been resistance training, randomly assigned to normal protein, which is 1 gram per pound of body weight. Right, so that's the upper end that we recommend. Normally we recommend 1 gram per pound of lean body mass. and a high protein, really high, 1.5 grams of body weight per day. And both groups did, they trained heavily. And so check this out. Look at the lean body mass. So what you're looking at here, again, changes in kilograms, and all these data points represents a person. So this is a normal protein group consuming 1 gram per pound. This is a high protein group consuming 1.5 grams per pound. And you can see that both groups gained an average of 3 pounds per lean body mass. It was about the same, whether you are consuming a gram or 1.5 grams per pound per body weight per day, right? So if you're a bodybuilder, don't get mad, because I have good news for you. If you do consume a 1.5 grams per pound or more, what did the study find? Basically, both groups lost fat, but the high protein group lost significantly more fat. Once again, bodybuilders knew this, 3.5 pounds versus 0.66 pounds. So the key takeaways are that higher protein intakes results in more fat being lost, but not additional lean mass being gained. Okay. And then not everybody experienced body recomposition. If you actually look at each individual data point versus just looking at the means or the averages, about, 2/3 of the people actually experienced body recomposition. Not everybody experienced it. So as a summary, your key takeaways: choose a slower rate. They gave you those numbers, higher end for overweight or those with a deadline, to Neil's point, if you're stepping on stage, or if you're somewhat a bride getting married or a groom getting married and you have a deadline, then of course you're going to want to be more aggressive for your special day. Include progressive resistance training at least 3 times a week. Prioritize protein around 1 gram per pound of lean mass, or 0.7 as your starting point for those of you who don't know your body fat. Yes, it's possible to lose weight and gain muscle at the same time. It requires higher protein intakes, more of the gram per pound of weight, up to 1.5 is what we saw in that last study. So I know that was a lot. Hopefully you got those 3 takeaways. We're going to pick a winner because I see a lot of people that chimed in. And we'd love to know what you're interested in us covering. So again, Neil's going to cover, contest dieting, is what we call it, or optimizing body composition, in his presentation for NASM's Optima conference. But if you want us to go into it in this series, we definitely will. I thought maybe we could cover diet breaks. Diet breaks is sort of an emerging area of research, also referred to as intermittent calorie restriction. They're 2 different things, but of the same sort of principle. Maybe you want to talk about maximizing muscle and minimizing fat, or hey, just let us know. What else do you want to talk about? Let us know. Type it into the question section. So I'm going to go back to this slide here so you guys can take notes or screenshot it if you wanted to. And I'm going to open it up to Q&A. So if you have a question, type it in. Go ahead, Neil.
Sort of the natural place to go after this part 1 would be plateaus. I taught a class on plateaus, as Kat will remember. I think she just joined our company back then, about how do you get through plateaus with people, because literally millions of customers have gone through our programs and everyone comes to a plateau. And the problem with that is that the number one reason, of course, for plateau, you've kind of got the idea, and that is because the body adapts to whatever intake and output is happening. But breaking that plateau becomes unique in the fact that, you can drop their calories, you can add movement, you can do a combination of the 2. But if for some reason it doesn't break it, well, that's the tough conversation with the consumer with the client at that point. So we can cover that stuff. It's up to you guys. You guys pick what you want, but keep it related to this. We want to do kind of a 3-part series.
Yep. So type it in. Tell us what you know, what you want to learn about, and we will definitely take that into consideration. Okay, so this is Q&A. I know some of you can't stay on past the hour. We're at 11:54, so we will stay as long as you guys want to. We always do, right, Neil? Yeah. Unless you have a hard stop, Neil?
No, I'm good. I'm good all the way. Yeah.
All right, cool. So if you have questions, then type it into the questions box. Just open it up in the GoToWebinar window and type in whatever you have for us, and we'll stay for as long as you guys want answering questions. So Carlos, hey Carlos, he says, I got a client with hypothyroidism. That means underactive thyroid. you burn fewer calories, right? And after being cleared by her physician and reportedly having no nutritional prohibitions, that's an interesting term, what should be my approach as she wants to lose 20 pounds? So the same principle applies. So typically with hypothyroidism, a lot of people think it prevents weight loss. It doesn't. It might make it a little bit more challenging, but the same principles apply. Energy balance still apply. Got to get her in a deficit. And if she's working with a doctor, then the doctor probably prescribed to her Synthroid or something very similar to raise her metabolism. And so you're going to have that as well. You just want to avoid caffeine, basically, or stimulants to counteract with the medication. But the same principles apply, Carlos, to that question. Do you have any comment on that, Neil?
Yeah, I mean, that's the most common issue that we dealt with over the last 30, 40 years is the thyroid thing. And, you know, to Kat's point, it doesn't change the equation. The equation remains the same for every human being. So, and people, well, I don't eat anything. They'll always say, well, I hardly eat anything. Well, first of all, if you have hypothyroid, a low thyroid, then you're being treated for it. So that's number one. And now your thyroid is equal to everybody else's. So that excuse has gone out the window. And I just want to, I know I'm just being brutal because I have lived this life now for 40 years working with people that say they can't lose weight. Well, if I lock them down in my house and they live with me, they will lose weight because I will control the food intake. They can't sneak it. They can't not count it. They can't do any of those things. So it's an easy equation that every week, every 2 weeks, it's going to go in the right direction if you're manipulating the food intake. So that's all. That's all. There's no other thing. It's just a matter. It's harder. And Kat made the right thing. It's harder for people that have a little lesser metabolism, but the actual equation is exactly the same. So just keep that in mind.
Cool. Okay. So Shirley asked, how do you use calipers when you are alone? You don't.
yeah, that's a good one. You know what? You got me.
Yeah, you don't, Shirley. I don't know if we maybe misspoke or something, but we would always you have to have a trained technician. You want someone who's experienced taking it, right? That way it increases the reliability of the measurement.
Yeah, there are measurements though. We have the measurement thing in our program where you can actually do circumference and kind of come up, but even that's hard by yourself. You know, you really try to find somebody that can work with you. Yep. Hold on, Chad, say what's that? Yeah. Yeah. You know, Chad makes a good point because he works with a lot of bodybuilders right now. He's sitting over here right now. You know, he just measures the girth in your stomach right there. You know, and he does that for because I use a mirror. Not for me, but if I'm working with somebody, we would go in the posing room. I look at them every single week, and I can tell which way they're going. Just that's the easier way. So you can do that. But you know, when it's not that easy when you're like a little really overweight. It's really easy when your body fat's coming down fast, and now you can see the changes like crazy. But when you're really overweight, you don't see that much. So that's a good way to do it. Take a caliper on your own, just a little caliper, and measure right around the gut. And watch it, see if it goes, it's going down regularly. That's what you want.
Okay, what else you guys got? Keep asking your questions. We want to know. Hold on, let me fetch the next one. I see a bunch of people are trying to win some products. Nice work, you guys. So Daniel, Nancy, Mickey, Bernice, of course, Bernice, Tori. Good job, you guys. We'll definitely pick a winner for you.
Yeah, we'll pick a couple of them.
We'll pick a couple of them, of course. Okay, so the next one is, hold on. Bernice wants to know, back in the day, Neil, when there was no such thing as measuring and counting calories, would you just look at the mirror and measure yourself to figure out what to eat?
Well, exactly what I said, right? But there was never a time we didn't count calories. Let me tell you this, and listen, I was a competitive bodybuilder in the 70s, right? So we always counted calories. There was never a time we didn't count calories. We were just ahead of everybody, right? We'd been through every type of diet, high protein, high carb. We did it all. Didn't matter. You know, we knew that because we lived it. So we knew what would work and what didn't work. So we always counted calories. There was never a time. But to your point, measurements, didn't need them. I didn't need measurements until I went into the gym and had to do other people. When I had to work with other people, you had to do it so they could see the measurement change. Bodybuilders are going to get there, right? They're going to get there. So you just get in the mirror, you look in the mirror, and you can see it getting there. They're motivated. Your average customer in the gym isn't nearly as motivated as someone that's got to stand on stage at a certain date. So they're going to stick to what I tell them to do. They never cheat, right? Your customer is the one. That's why you got to do measurements regularly to be able to market. So yeah, measurements came in. I introduced it into the gym business, body fat measurements, in 1985, because I didn't want people to lose just weight. They needed to lose body fat, and I had to prove it because I was going to feed muscle and starve fat, which was the equation that kind of changed the world, and that built the 5 components. So yeah, counting calories is something that you should always do. I don't know a single bodybuilder on the planet that still doesn't count calories.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing here and turn on our webcams. Let's see. Okay, cool. So the next question is from Tony. I was told by a bodybuilder that my macros are to be equal in regards to fat and carbs, and I should lower one to eliminate one energy source to lower body weight and body fat. Is that true? Is that true, Neil?
Yes, it is. That's actually a good call out. You don't change the protein, right? The protein is just going to go up automatically. If you're dropping calories, protein stays the same. By percentage, it's going to go up. You don't need percentages, a gram per pound. But what's going to happen is this. I always like starting out. Off-season bodybuilders should be doing 40, 30, 30. Even 50% carbohydrates is good. Without those carbs, you can't really, your testosterone level won't get as high. You can't recover as fast or have the energy to have a better workout all the time. So 40 to 50% carbohydrate, at least 30% protein. As long as you're a gram per pound, you don't have to do any math on anything else, right? And about 25 or 30, 35 even % of fat. But the only things you can reduce, and that's why this guy's right, is carbohydrates and fat as you get ready for the show. Sometimes you got to increase the protein, so you really got to get rid of that. And start with the carbs first. I would drop the carbs first and then slowly get into the fat at that point. Because if you drop too many carbs too fast, and that's all you're going to drop, you're not going to sustain that energy with just fat and protein. Okay, that's kind of sort of not even ketogenic. So at that point, you really want to get into carbs is the number one thing you're going to reduce, and then start doing the fat.
Okay, cool. So the next question is, a lot of people want to hear about diet breaks, Neil. Diet breaks, intermittent fasting, maximizing muscle and minimizing fat gain. We talked about that topic.
Well, that's going to happen.
Which is better?
If this is 3 parts, the last part's going to be about how you build the perfect supplement program around that, because it's not just high protein, you guys. You saw that high protein, they still lost muscle. No, not everybody, but many people still lost muscle. That isn't the answer to the equation. The equation is way more than just protein. It is your vitamins and minerals that make the protein work. Okay, so every time you reduce calories, you're reducing vitamins and minerals. So you feed the vitamins and minerals back without the calories. Now you got the equation, and that's how you build muscle. While you lose body fat. So that's going to be the final 3rd one we're going to do. I'm going to put all the programs together for you. You're going to see exactly how I build that program as I do for everybody.
Okay, cool. So what is better, collagen, whey, or plant-based protein for supplements?
Collagen whey. Well, that's an oxymoron.
Collagen, comma, whey. Collagen or whey or plant-based protein.
Oh,
Which one's better?
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So collagen is an incomplete protein. So just keep that in mind, which means that you really can't. You have to have other amino acids coming in from another source in order to complete that protein. Okay, because collagen is that's what makes up our connective tissue, our skin, and everything else is a very ubiquitous protein throughout the body. But as a supplement, but there's a good side to it, so I'll get there. But as a supplement to build muscle protein synthesis, it's not as good as a complete plant protein, if you will. And of course, nothing's as good as whey. Whey trumps it all. No argument. Not a scientist in the world can ever say anything any different. Whey trumps everything. highest protein per gram, highest amino acid count per gram of protein of anything. So that's it. And it's not that big a deal, because if you're eating enough protein, it really doesn't matter as long as it's complete. A plant protein like ours, best plant protein, what we did, we took pea protein, added chia seeds and a bunch of other little things to it to make the amino acid profile identical to whey. So think about that. You're getting a plant protein with an amino acid profile identical to whey. That's pretty freaky. So we literally have the best plant protein that you can possibly. So that you can take care of it that way, but you have to fortify it. Whey, you don't have to fortify. It's fortified. You just got to fortify other ones. Collagen. What we do see of collagen right now, there's some very interesting studies about collagen protein. The peptides seem to stay intact and can actually get to your joints. There may be a benefit aside from muscle protein synthesis. There's no benefit to muscle protein synthesis over whey or anything else, but there may be a cartilage synthesis benefit to adding a collagen protein to your. We'll keep you posted on that. I follow it pretty close for our pro athletes.
Cool. Yep. Okay. So Tim asks, how can I get more protein? I'm 70 years old, 6'3", and 220 pounds. I walk 40 to 50 miles every week. My average daily protein is 90 grams.
And how much what was the weight?
6'3", 220. First of all, you go, boy.
That is 70 years old?
70, 6'3", 220, 40, 50 miles every week. That's awesome, Tim.
A big human, I love it.
And super active.
You definitely need, getting more protein. If you're only getting 90 grams, and by the way, you should know this is Kim, right? Of the name?
Tim, male.
Tim.
Yep.
You should know that the older you get, the more protein you need. So you can look at me, I'm your age, I'm 68, so I'm not quite your age, right? I'm half the man I used to be, because I was 265. You can Google me. I was an athlete at 265. I'm now 165. Both my sons are professional athletes. One's a fighter, one plays professional football. And they're in their early 20s, and I need twice the protein they need. They work out that much harder, they're that much bigger and everything else. It's because our bodies become resistant to protein as you get older, because we're not supposed to be here. It turns off to everything. So you need to overcome it. You've got to get up to about at least 150 grams, 160 grams of protein. So you almost have to double what you're doing. I don't know where you're getting your protein source, because 90 is extremely low. And for you, basically, even below the RDA. So you really want to get that up there. And the easiest thing to do right now, if you're happy with your food program, get some whey, get the Whey Smooth. Go get that. If you're a vegan, then get the best plant protein. And have a couple of servings of that daily. Okay? So get that done now.
Or you can add it
Call
to your food too.
Call me
oatmeal. Okay, Drew says, thank you from a lifelong fat woman who is finally learning how to do this all at age 59. It's been 12 weeks, down 30 pounds, and most importantly, feeling good for the first time in a long time. Almost off the diabetes medicine.
Oh,
bravo. Good job. Yes.
Way to go.
Good job. Okay. Also people wanting to hear about diet breaks, counting macros. Okay. Does the speed of mechanical chewing affect the quality of nutrients absorbed?
Yeah, no, the chewing, I mean, listen, the longer you chew something, the better it is, because it's slower coming down. The food has time to work on the brain and the hypothalamus to tell you to stop eating. So, yeah, we want you to chew your food good, break it up and everything else. And then the better you chew it, you probably will extract the nutrients a little sooner before it gets through the duodenum, jejunum, and your ileum as it gets down there. So no big deal. I wouldn't, don't get hung up on little stuff like that. No big, not there. But obviously, we like people to chew, strictly because the satiety is better, right? I mean, you get a feeling of fullness the longer you chew. If you just swallow food, it takes a long time to break it down and have those signals go to the brain to tell you to slow down eating. So we chewing, take your time.
There you go. Yep, it's definitely great for satiety. Okay, I have a client that has belly fat that wants to lose while also gaining body weight and lean mass in her glutes and thighs. What diet plan and or workouts would optimize her results? So we covered the diet part, Stephen.
Yep.
Right? And then obviously, you know, from glutes and thighs, it's, you know, doing a variety of exercises targeting those areas. You want to add to that, Neil?
Well, I do. What I want to add to is sort of the misconception there. Just that's all. You know, when people say they want to tone, you know, that's what that means is that you want to lose body fat, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when I want to tone up my triceps, you know, the older females, they'll have that, you know, the skin hanging, right? Well, you know, listen, all I can do is lose body fat. When you lose body fat, the older you get, you lose also elastin. That's what pulls your skin tight when you lose. So you end up with loose skin, but at least the fat's not there. That's down. If you can add a little size to the triceps still, then it can also make it a little tighter looking. So think of the same thing with the butt, with the thighs, or any of those things. You know, it really is more about, okay, just again, you want to be able to train that muscle so it doesn't atrophy anymore. So your fat jiggles too much, you know, you want to be able to do that. You can't target anything. There's no such thing as spot reducing. And that's the whole thing. And there's no foods that spot reduce. As much as you go on the internet and it says, well, these foods are not good for your belly. I swear to God, I see that pop up all the time. And I go, really? Who falls for that anymore? I mean, there's no such thing as spot reducing. You know, it's just, you know, that's been nixed a million times, 100 times. Otherwise, people that chew gum wouldn't have fat faces. You know, I mean, it's just like,
right.
Why would you have any fat on your glutes at all? That's the only part of the body that moves the most when you walk. But it's there. Okay, so there's no spot reducing.
Funny.
You just have to keep losing body fat and that stay in that deficit, and it will finally leave that troubled area. The older you get, it changes. Like for me, I used to actually store more fat in my stomach than more fat in my legs. Now my legs are shredded as an old geezer, right? And my gut is always nice and clear. You can always see my abs, you know, and that's all good. So that will change, and that's hormones. Where you lose fat first and where you gain fat first is hormonally programmed in your genetics. Okay, all we can do is continue to lose it. And sometimes you've got to really lose a lot of weight to get that troubled spot off. And sometimes that's not a good idea. So you got to make peace with that. You know, ladies, all of you know, there's a place where you don't want to lose weight generally anyway, is up here. And what happens is that's one of the first places that actually leaves the female, especially when you don't need them anymore. So those are the common hormones that take place. So again, you know, and again, you end up storing it on your butt. Well, you've all seen people with skinny legs and big bellies, right? That's just strictly the way body fat is stored. But as long as you lose it, it will finally leave that tough spot. You just don't want to have to, you know, go crazy on it. You got to be very careful of where that genetically comfortable place is for you. I just want to get that last part of it.
Okay, cool. Debbie wants to know if a person is 200 pounds, is the calculation for protein based on weight? Yes, it's 0.7, Debbie. So you would take 200 times 0.7 at the low end. 140 grams would be her daily target for protein. Spread across.
So just so you know, the reason I do lean body mass, and really nobody else does, is because we do measure body fat, and that way I'm safe. What I mean is that I am correct no matter what at lean body mass at a gram per pound. So if you are that way, if you are a 350-pound obese person, I'm not going to give you 350 grams of protein, right?
No.
You probably have 200 pounds or maybe 180 pounds of lean body mass, right? So we're totally comfortable there. So the gram per pound of weight I only use, and write this down, is if you're in fairly good shape. Then use it. It's easier.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, great. In regards to cardio, in addition to strength training, is it recommended to do more steady state versus interval or HIIT in relation to weight loss? So all the research I've read in this area is it doesn't matter. You pick the one you can stick to, but obviously the HIIT is more efficient. In other words, you're going to burn more calories in less time in the gym.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at the way when we get bodybuilders ready for a show, We like them doing very little cardio in the off season. 2 days a week for health. So two days a week of a good little cardio workout for health. And that way, when we get them ready for a show 16 weeks out, when we start adding it up, and it makes a huge difference very quickly, right?
Yeah.
They haven't adapted to a whole bunch when it comes to body fat. So we start building it from there. We get into the last 4 or 5 weeks, we go into interval training. So to Kat's point, you can burn a hell of a lot more calories in a lot less time, right? So that's when you start getting into the HIIT and things like that.
Yeah, and if you're out of shape, if you're doing HIIT, you increase your risk of injury, tendons, joints, so I think it's just, case dependent. Okay, is 40-30-30 macros also applicable to women? Yeah, women can do 40-30-30. That's perfectly fine, perfectly acceptable. There's no male versus female difference.
That's all I've ever done my entire life, actually.
Yeah.
It's a great starting place. Now, if you're an endurance athlete, let's qualify that. If you're an endurance athlete, you're probably more 70-20-20 or 70-20-10 even.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I just say, so it's completely different because they're burning a crap load of calories. So at 20% of their calories being protein, it's still 1 gram per pound, right? And because of the amount of calories, but endurance athletes, way high carbohydrate intake to be able to fuel their bodies, through those crazy long runs, and Ironman athletes and things like that. But 40-30-30 for anybody, or even a strength athlete, is pretty normal.
Okay, cool. And the last question is, two more questions. If I do too much cardio, will it be harder to gain muscle as I get older? Okay, let me go first, Neil, and then you can chime in. As you get older, it gets harder to build muscle tissue, right? Because 1, your body loses it naturally, and 2, you become, what Neil alluded to, was anabolic resistance. Your body doesn't respond. In other words, muscle protein synthesis isn't stimulated as easily with the same amount of protein compared to younger counterpoints, and it doesn't respond as well to resistance training. So as you get older, it gets harder. You need more. And the other aspect is, if you're doing a lot of cardio, then you got to eat more to offset it.
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, your body doesn't like doing the 2 things at once. You're building this perfect aerobic system versus a perfect muscular system. That's why you got to find a halfway medium there, depending on what you want to do. Listen, 30 minutes of good cardio 5 days a week is more than enough for your health. Okay, just so you know, and probably even really good for your joints, rather than going way over that. So keep that in mind.
Cool. And then the last question is from Mike. Can you explain reverse dieting? So reverse dieting that you've probably heard of is this concept of, after a diet period is when calories are slowly added in, right, to help with metabolism and to help prevent rapid weight gain. So it's kind of a new concept in the science, but I'm sure that bodybuilders did it naturally.
No,
right?
let me tell you how bodybuilders did it.
Or did you just gain it all back?
Yeah, so when I won the Mr. Western America, I weighed in at 212. Yeah. That's before I became a super heavyweight, but I weighed in at 212. Literally a day and a half later, I was 262 in a hospital getting injectable diuretics, because bodybuilders don't stop eating when they finish a contest after crazy dieting, right? You eat, you're gonna blow up because you just can't stop eating. You can't satisfy your hunger. So that's a different scenario, okay? But to the point of reverse dieting, yes, it's okay to go cheat a day or 2, but if you keep doing it, you're in trouble. So just slowly add the calories back, get the metabolism working again, and taking your time. But that's a lot of discipline. If you're going, it depends on how far you went, obviously. But let me ask you, this is the more important part for you that are working with clients. I get a client that starts at 200 pounds and their goal is 150. My goal for them is 150, but it's really going from 30% body fat down to 18, okay? So stay with me. I spend 6 months getting them down to 18% body fat. Well, that's a manipulation of calories and activity, right? Well, guess what? The amount of activities and calories, the low calories that it took to get them to the 18% is not what it takes to maintain it. So now your reverse diet comes in. I get to add calories to them, and I can cut back on their workload and they can maintain it, because that's constant moving. When I work with someone, they never plateau. I catch it before that, and I just boom, 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 right? They get there, and I go, so by the way, I always tease them. I go, when we get to your goal, I get to add calories back, but it's slow. It's an extra 200 for the first week. A month later, another 250, and now they're in a really comfortable place. So that's what true sort of reverse dieting would be. Once they get to their goal, you get to add the calories back, because they can't just keep losing, or they're going to be die. So at some point you got to increase the calorie intake and drop the workload.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. People say that they do it, Neil, when they can't lower their calorie intake anymore and they still want to lose weight. We're talking about the reverse diet. Yeah.
Okay. Well, when they can't lower their calorie intake, and I have a lot of people like that, if they're small or they're anything small, overweight, or they hurt, they can't move anymore, right? Do anymore, then daily activities. The best way is to increase, and Kat talked about it, NEAT. That is the most easy thing. The non-exercise activity is really what you can do. So instead of, anytime you're on the phone and you're sitting down, stand up. That burns 1.5 times more calories than sitting down. That's why I'm standing up doing this right now. I'm burning 2 times more calories than if I was sitting down. Okay, that's huge every day. So that's the easiest way to get there without having to lower calories. Increase your daily activities. You don't have to increase the gym activities, increase the daily activities.
Okay, let's see. Is it better to do cardio after workout to remove the excess glucose? I'm not sure I understand your question, Tori, but in the context that we're talking about, to maximize fat loss and minimize muscle tissue breakdown, the order doesn't necessarily matter. Now, if you're trying to maximize muscle gain, then you probably want to prioritize your workouts, your strength training before cardio, or do it on different days.
Yeah.
So type in clarify. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we always like, weight training. If your goal is, any of your goals body fat, I like weight training first, because you got the high energy, and those are like quick bursts of strength, right? So you're not depleted. Have you ever, anybody run hard for an hour and then go into a gym and try to work out with weights? That doesn't go over very well. So I like to get a cardio. We like that first, but again, it depends on your goal.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a good question, Tori. Kat, as an RD, I know you are not specialized in eating disorders. However, how would one approach a male or female who deals with binge eating, clinically diagnosed? Binge eating can occur in both.
I lost your volume, Kat. Can everybody hear her? I lost it.
If you can hear me?
Oh, no, I got it now. It's on now. Yes. Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So the question had to do with how do you combat clinically diagnosed binge eating disorders, and the answer is you would have to refer out, because in most cases when someone's clinically diagnosed with an eating disorder, there's something underneath, typically trauma, or not dealing with anxiety, depression, things like that effectively. So if you could pair with a psychologist, someone who specializes in this area, that's the best way to do it. Now, if you can have them eat as balanced as possible and regular meals as possible so that they don't get hungry, and you can control their blood sugar and their appetite, you can try to do that, but it's not going to fix the issue if there's something causing it underneath emotionally or psychologically.
And keep in mind, if you're not a dietitian, which is why, we have you go through the certification, so that you can give standard nutrition information to your clients and work with them for weight loss, then you need to send that out. You need to make sure that you're sending it out to a dietitian.
You refer out. Yeah. And if you guys need help with clinical issues like that, and you contact us, we have clinical dietitians that take virtual clients that can do work.
Yep.
Okay. You guys are such good sports. Guadalupe Perez says, I don't have a question. Just want to say I'm new to the industry and I'm a complete sponge at this point. Love you both. Learned so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. If you were gifted with a multivitamin, hopefully you redeem that. If not, then Chad will take care of you.
We got you. We'll take you pick 3, Kat, that you saw that sent in the right answers. We'll pick 3.
Yep.
Have them send us their normal supplement routine for themselves, and we'll send it to them. Okay.
Okay. So here we go. From Elizabeth, 2 days a week, I'm working nights and want to make sure that my nutrition does not suffer. Do I eat the majority of my protein at night while awake or before I go to sleep in the afternoon? In other words, my body clock is off for a couple days a week.
Yeah, just do it the same way. Spread it out. Obviously, you're not going to eat while you're asleep. And I'm not trying to be funny, but I'm just telling you that's not going to happen. So get up in the morning, make sure you have your protein, and whatever your awake time is, space it the same way.
There you go.
Yep.
Okay. Renee wants to know, Neil, is isolate whey better than concentrate?
The only time isolate whey is better is if you have allergies, because whey concentrates always our preferable one, as long as you have no weird allergies. Now, don't forget, whey concentrate shouldn't have any lactose in it, so don't worry about lactose. That should be stripped from any good whey protein. Like ours don't contain any significant lactose at all. So keep that in mind. We use a concentrate because concentrate has what we call immunoglobulins. It has growth factors. It has other things in the whey. What an isolate does is strips all that other stuff out. All that other good stuff is stripped out. Right? And those things help your immune system and some other different parts of growth factors, especially in younger people. So that's why we like to concentrate. But we use a whey isolate in our lean MR in case you needed it. So if you need an isolate, you can use a lean MR. And we do that also because it also gets the cholesterol out of the whey, which is naturally in whey, which is actually, a little bit of cholesterol is good. Obviously, too much for people that have high cholesterol, that are cholesterol sensitive, you've got to stay away from it. So that's why lean MR is kind of built that way. But if you have an allergy to a dairy protein, so that's nothing to do with lactose now, this has to do with the protein itself that is in a dairy product, then you would use a whey isolate. And that would remove, because usually the allergy would be to something like the immunoglobulins that come naturally in a whey protein. So that's the only reason you use it.
Okay, there you go.
Yep.
Okay, Delphina says, I'm not a trainer. Are these webinars for those of us who are trying to lose weight? Absolutely, yes. With that in mind, are you saying your average person should increase their daily protein? Yes. And you're currently on Weight Watchers and watch. Okay, cool. Weight Watchers work. It's a form of portion control, but I would say you still got to do the three things. It still applies. Those three strategies still apply, Delphina. And we're glad you're here because for everybody.
If you're going to increase your protein, and you're on Weight Watchers, stay within the calories. Just eliminate something else. So that's a good program. They do a good job with, keeping people accountable.
Okay, I think I got all your questions. Last call for those of you who are still on that want to ask anything. We have your email addresses when you registered, so I'm going to tell you who won right now. Okay, let me just tell you right now because some of you are chiming in saying, who won? All you competitive people. You guys want to know who won? Hold on, let me scroll up. This thing is long.
I'm sure there's a bunch of winners, but we can only pick three. We're picking three.
I'll just pick the first three.
Yeah, that's what you're doing. Yeah.
How's that? Yeah. So the first three were Fernando Andres Guerrero Pinheiro. You won. And then Christina Demke, you won. And Steven Semple, you won. So there you have it. Those are the winners. And you guys tune in to our one next month. Again, it's a 3-part series. We'll take into account your feedback. And Neil, why don't you close it out for us? Any words of wisdom?
No, I think we've used them all up. No, today was good. This is always, for me, it's always my most fun topic. I built a fitness empire around the 5 components about, the difference between what we do and the rest of the world does, when it comes to feeding muscle and starving fat, because that's what you have to do if you want to remain independent for your entire life. So you can do the things you love to do all the way to the day you die. These are the things you have to do rather than just lose weight or just, exercise. You've got to, fill your gaps of nutrition and put it all together. So this is always the best part of the things that we're able to pass on to all of you fitness professionals. We've got some big stuff going on right now, between all of our companies. So stay tuned. really some big things happening. And by the
Okay,
way,
you guys,
stay safe,
stay
wear a
safe.
mask, wash your hands, do all the right things so we can open up the world again and be normal.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here, you guys. My dog says it's
See ya.
time to end. So bye.
See ya.